Big Break podcast, where we delve into the rich history of jazz to celebrate artists, entrepreneurs, and jazz enthusiasts alike. Join our host, Dr. Dina Bennett, well-known ethnomusicologist and executive director of the American Jazz Museum, on a journey into the stories behind the art. Let's go.
Hello, and welcome to the American Jazz Museum's Big Break series. I'm your host, Dr. Bennett, and today we have a very special guest joining us, Diallo Javonne French. From his early days as a musician to his impactful work behind the camera, Diallo's journey is a testament to the power of music and storytelling. Stay tuned as we dive deep into his incredible journey, exploring his passion for jazz, his experiences as a musician, and his transition into film production. This is an episode you don't want to miss. Welcome back to another episode of the Big Break podcast. I'm Dr. Dina Bennett, Executive Director of the American Jazz Museum and your host. And today I am with Diallo Javonne French, who is a filmmaker and a photographer. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you here at the historic Gym Theater. And we want to find out a little bit about your life, what you do, what are some of your influences and impacts on your work. So tell me a little bit about yourself to start off.
Okay. Well, born and raised right here in Kansas City. I am a filmmaker and music photographer. Started out as a musician and then had that come to Jesus moment, and it evolved into filmmaking and music photography. But music is at the center of everything that I do. All my films are music based. You know, I pretty much mostly photograph musicians, and that's really in a nutshell. I mean, you know, I went to college in Atlanta, went to Clark Atlanta University, majored in mass communications, radio, TV, film, worked as a PA on music videos while I was in Atlanta. So, you know, I'm old. So this was mid-90s. So TLC, Outkast, Goody Mob, got a chance. That's how I learned production, was working on music videos. So that's me in a nutshell.
Wow. That is awesome. So you went to college in Atlanta, then you came back to Kansas City, and then you kept working in this field, right?
Yeah. So when I came back because my mother was ill at the time. She's since passed away. But so when I came back right around the time they built the Jazz Museum. I came back in 97.
Okay.
And so sort of got engrossed in sort of the jazz history here. I mean, even though I grew up here, I didn't know much about it. I mean, I knew Charlie Parker was from here. I knew Count Basie had lived here in a while. And I knew Kansas City was known for jazz and barbecue. But I started working at the Jazz Museum in 2001, as you know, and as assistant special events coordinator. And that's when I really learned a lot. And that's when I became friends with all the musicians. And that was really the sort of genesis of a lot of the work that I'm doing right now.
So I've noticed that your photography is always in black and white. And so tell me about working in that medium.
So I like black and white because one of the photographers that influenced me was Herman Leonard. And he's probably, I think, more so than any other
big photographer of jazz artists.
Yeah, I think when you think of iconic jazz photos, there's like a 90% chance that it's one of his photographs, whether it's Charlie Parker or Ella Fitzgerald or whoever. And I remember when I was working here at the Jazz Museum, we had a Herman Leonard exhibit in the lobby of the Gym Theater, and I would look at that every day. Mm-hmm. So that, I think, is why I got it. Plus, I like the timelessness of the photographs. One of my favorite pictures I've ever taken is of the late, great Roy Hargrove. He was here and he performed in the Blue Room. He's like just sitting with the band.
Okay.
And he had on like a bow tie and this like weird colored blazer. And when you look at the picture, it looks like something that could have been taken in the 40s or 50s, but it was like 2014. And so like jazz musicians, most of them still dress the way they did back in the day. So I like the timelessness of it. So, and even with the pictures I have of like Janelle Monáe or Tech Nine, like I think the black and white, you can't really tell what year it is. I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of Janelle Monáe, are you related to her?
No, I'm not related to Janelle Monáe.
I thought I had heard that. Okay.
Well, right. I think so. I am related to Charlie Parker by marriage, is what I found out several years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess he had a half brother And I
Yes,
guess
he
his
did.
half brother was married to a distant relative of mine. That's the way it was explained to me. So
Okay.
it takes everything in me not to walk around with a Charlie Parker, my cousin, T-shirt on.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna go that
Well,
far. But it's by marriage.
let me know. We can sell them in the swing
Hey,
shop. So
I might get
yeah.
one made. I might.
Well, speaking of music and how you use it in your films, what era of music do you like the best? Is there a particular style or genre of music that you choose? Is it jazz? Is your films, are they fueled by a jazz soundtrack or?
It's weird. I didn't really get into jazz until I got into college. When I was in college in Atlanta, I worked at Greenbrier Mall, and there was a record store there called Peppermint Music, and that's where I worked. And my manager, who was a Morehouse graduate, he would listen to jazz like when we were closing, and sometimes in the morning we would open up. And before that, I was into like more contemporary jazz, like David Sanborn and people like that.
Kenny G and.
Yeah, actually, Kenny G was back in the day. I thought was really cool. Then he just kind of got a little bit too sappy for my taste. But yeah, I was just like in high school. That's the stuff like Bob James and stuff like that. But I really didn't get into like the serious jazz until college because his name was Carl, and he was a few years older than me, and he would play this stuff, and so that's what first got me into it. And then when I moved back to Kansas City, in addition to working at the Jazz Museum, I worked at the at Streetside Records in Westport, and they had like the biggest jazz collection in the city. Like the whole downstairs was jazz, and that's where I met jazz. That's where I met Bobby Watson. That's where I met Gerald Dunn. That's where I met Lonnie McFadden, and so all of that. But actually, my favorite era of music is probably the era that. It's hard to say because I just like so many different eras. I like the '60s. But I grew up in the '70s and '80s, so I'm partial to that.
Sure.
I'm part of that first MTV generation. So '80s music I listen to a lot. So I'd probably have to say '70s, and I'm partial to the '80s just because that's my childhood.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, tell me a little bit about your films. I know a lot of them have themes, Kansas City themes or Kansas City based. And I think even one that you've most recently worked on kind of explores the legacy of 18th and Vine and its jazz history.
Yeah, so the most recent one is Kansas City Dreamin', which she's in. Which is basically about the African American music history of the city. So that's what we pretty much talk about. So all of my films are music themed. The film that I'm in the process of trying to get funded now is a Black love story, but the lead character is an R&B singer. So because that's my background,
There's the music again.
Yeah, because
yes, of course.
Music is my first love, and everything else sort of falls in line after that. But yeah, so the Kansas City Dreamin' film, really, the nucleus of that is really just working here and knowing all these musicians and taking all these pictures. So how I got into still photography is my mother passed away in 2005. And I felt like I needed a hobby to sort of help me grieve in a sense. I don't know if that makes any sense or not.
Yeah, it does.
And so even though I've been making films since I was like 18, 19 years old, I had never gotten into still photography. And at that time, I had been working here and hanging out at the Blue Room all the time, as you know. And so I went and got me a little camera and just started taking pictures. And so really it was Bobby Watson that was the turning point, because I took some pictures of him early on and he liked them. And he sat down and said, you're not just taking pictures, you're documenting. It was like, these pictures you're taking, you're capturing the music scene of this city, like for this generation, for this era. And I was like, I never thought about it like that. I was just, it was just something to do.
Right. Yeah.
And so I took it more seriously after that. I got my camera in like 2006. So in 2016, I'm big on celebrating anniversaries. I was like, man, I've been taking pictures for 10 years. I got a nice little archive here. So I said, what could I do to celebrate this 10 years? Because 10 years is a long time to stick with one thing. A lot of people do stuff for 10 days and then they're on to the next thing. So I decided to do a short film. And so it was called Kansas City Dreamin': Music in Shadows. And it's centered around my photographs and Bobby Watson's career. And I just did it as a short and just put it on Vimeo.
Oh, wow.
And so that was And then in 2020, I decided, let's make this into a full-length film. And then that's how the rest of the film came about.
Well, that's wonderful. So I don't think we can document this area enough, for the world.
And I just barely scratched the surface because I focus on like more of the African-American music history, but there's Pat Metheny and there's Brookmeyer and there's all these other, white musicians and Hispanic musicians that are from this area so, I mean, you could really do a 12-hour docu-series on Kansas City, but I don't know if anybody other than us want to watch it, but
well, yeah.
Right. But yeah, so I just, from my perspective, I just kind of scratched the surface and using the photographs that I've taken of different musicians over the course of the last almost 20 years now.
Well, I think you've also had some exhibitions on your work. So, and I think, did you have one in the Changing Gallery here at the American Jazz Museum?
I've been a part of 2 in the Changing Gallery.
Okay.
And that was all thanks to Sunny Ruffin. Like, she basically came over my house, picked out the photos. She got them printed and framed for me. And that was my first actual exhibition, was actually in the Changing Gallery. It was was it Reflections in Jazz, I think was the name of it. We're talking like 2010, 2011. So that was my first official, and it was just weird to see, my work up there with all these other great artists that were part of that exhibition. So, but yeah, I mean, I've had a couple of solo exhibitions since then, but
Awesome. So do you have a favorite musician that you've photographed?
That's a tough one. I always enjoy photographing Bobby. I always enjoy photographing Lonnie McFadden because they're just so filled with life and personality, even when they're playing. I have a ton of photos of Gerald Dunn. I'm like a jazz disciple groupie.
Yes.
And I've been fortunate enough to photograph, how many shows has it been? 2 Janelle Monáe concerts. No, 3 now. 3 Janelle Monáe concerts.
Wow.
So photographing her is always fun because she gives you a lot. It's a little bit, it's more intense photographing her because when you do big concerts like that, they only let you take pictures for like the first 2 or 3 songs. So you're trying to get as many pictures as you can. Yeah, it's the stupid rule they have.
Okay.
So they'll let us in the pit area for the first 2 or 3 songs, and then the security guy will be, okay, that's the 3rd song, let's go,
And how do you even get in the pit?
So
What's the process?
The first concert is funny because their popularity has grown over the years, so it's harder each time. So the first time was I think 2014. She was at the Uptown, and so a guy I knew, he had an online magazine, and he called me like the day of and said, I'm doing this article on Janelle. I got a press pass. Can you go get some pictures? Yeah. So, so that was really easy. The second time she was at the Starlight and I was trying to finagle to get it and I wasn't having any success. And then I had an exhibition at Lady Vocus. I was part of an exhibition at Lady Vocus and I used one of the photos of her. And there was this couple there that saw the picture and they came up to me and said, we really like that picture. Are you going to the concert? Because she was coming to Starlight like about a few weeks later, a month later. And she said, are you going to take pictures at the new concert? And I said, I tried to. I can't get a photo pass. She was like, oh, we're on the board that's bringing her here. We can make that happen. I was like, okay.
Wow,
so that's
awesome
how that
too.
one came.
Yeah.
And then this last one last year was even crazier than that. So I went to the concert. I tried to reach out to her people and I never heard anything back. So I went up to Will Call. I was like, any chance do you have a ticket and a photo pass for Diallo Javonne French or Javonne Photography? And she said no. And I said, all right, well, just give me a ticket, and she's like, oh, we're sold out. And so my cousin, who's like this ticket Jedi, I texted her and she was like, oh, they always say that. Here, she sent me a link and I was able to get a ticket online. So then I'm just kind of standing there. I guess her sound check ran long. So she made everybody wait outside. So I'm like, I'm not standing in that line. So I went over to Yard House and one of her tour buses was there. So I'm standing there and her guitar player, Kalindo, he got off the bus and I met him at the Starlight show. I said, hey, Kalinda, you probably don't remember me. We met backstage last time you were here. I'm friends with Marcus Lewis because Marcus Lewis used to play in her band.
Okay.
And he was like, oh, yeah, the photographer guy. He's like, you taking pictures tonight? I said, nah. I said, I tried to get a photo pass. Oh, I can make that happen. He was like, hold on. And then he texted me and
That's so
said,
cool.
yeah, you got a photo pass and a ticket at Will Call after I bought a ticket.
Right.
And, but anyway, so of course I had my camera in the car just in case. I ran in my car and got it and got some, same thing, 3 songs. And then you got to get out the pit. You got to take your camera away. But I got some good shots. That's the most important thing. So I've been able to photograph her. So I use all of those photos in the documentary.
Okay. Yeah. And that's my other question. Now, do you have to have permission from her team to use the photos?
Not really, because it's a public place. I mean, just like the people that are there with their phones and stuff, they're my photographs. So I don't need permission.
It's using them for like an educational purpose anyway, right? Or
I mean, technically you could say that. You could say that. But because it's a concert and, it's now using her music and all that, then that's where it gets tricky. Yeah, that's where we're at now. That's the drama we're in now.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah.
It's copywriting and licensing. Music licensing.
It's a nightmare.
It's really complex.
I mean, you haven't seen the film yet, but it is. I don't know what I was thinking. We use so much pre-recorded music, but to tell the story effectively, I felt like I needed to do that. Now it's just a matter of figuring out how to pay for that so we can distribute the film nationally. Because my goal is just to see it streaming somewhere. That's it. I mean, you don't really make money on documentaries, but I want the film to get out to the rest of the world. That's my goal. So
most definitely.
Yeah.
Well, we definitely wish you luck in that, and you have to keep us posted because we're very proud of you, and we're very proud of the history that you're documenting, whether it's in the films or it's in the photographs.
And thank you for being a part of it.
So, you bet.
That you're being part of it.
So, what challenges do you face when photographing live events? How do you overcome them? I guess one challenge is trying to be able to get access like you.
Yeah, that's only with the bigger artists. Most of the venues here know me, and they don't, like the Blue Room is where I shoot like probably 90% of my photographs. Mayor Ronnie and Gerald and Andre, nobody cares. When they see me, in fact, they usually say, where's your camera if I don't have it? So, and then I'm friends with the owner of Corvino Supper Club. I've taken some photos there. Green Lady's a little too dark for what I like to do. So I don't shoot there very much. I have shot there, but not very often. But yeah, I mean, so it's only hard when it's a major artist in a larger venue. That's when it gets a little tricky.
Okay.
Even here in the Gym Theater, I have no issues really photographing folks. I think I've been around so long. I've actually got into concerts for free just because whoever was at the door like knew who I was and saw me with the camera. Or sometimes they don't even know me. You're like, oh, he's the photographer. Let him in. It's like, okay.
We're so used to seeing you. Your family.
Right.
So,
but it only works in smaller venues. I can't walk in Sprint. I mean, I'm sorry, T-Mobile now. I can't walk in T-Mobile and
get
that ain't gonna work. That's not
Yeah.
gonna work. That's not gonna work. Yeah.
So, can you describe what it's like to make a film? I know that's a huge question. Or where do you start on paper? Do you write down your ideas? And I'm kind of going back and forth with your film and photography experiences. So
yeah, I mean, it usually it starts with an ideal, and sometimes I'll write a treatment. Usually I write a treatment. I'll say 95% of the time I write a treatment, and I'll just write down a couple of paragraphs of, Dr. Dina Bennett is an assassin living in Kansas City, and she's going to assassinate. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, just
oh my gosh, you're like exposing me on camera.
I know, right? I mean, so it starts with a treatment, which usually is just like a couple of paragraphs, and then what I do is it's kind of weird. Every filmmaker is different. So for me, I have to watch the whole film in my mind before I start writing the script. And some people work differently. Some people, the story unfolds as they're writing the script. I kind of have to see the whole film before I start writing the script. And then once I've seen the whole film in my head, and then I write the script. And so the next film that I'm trying to get made it's a love story, but it's loosely based off of my own life. Trying to be a musician.
Okay.
Singing, writing songs about girls in high school that didn't want me. So the difference is this character actually has talent.
Okay.
And actually, and the character like becomes famous, and I had friends who were famous and friends who were musicians, either here in Kansas City and also when I was in Atlanta. Like one of my good friends in Atlanta used to tour with Mariah Carey as one of her background singers. And so listening to their stories about touring and fame and all of it. So it's really about, it's a love story, but it's also about like art versus commerce and fame and what can happen when those things meet and cross, and how you can kind of lose yourself and forget why you're doing it in the first place.
Okay.
It's also about the quality of music today versus the way it used to be. I'm gonna sound like
very fascinating. Yes.
I'm gonna sound like an old fuddy-duddy, but like when I listen to like a lot of today's music, I think like when I was younger, and I think like, man, like would they have even gotten a record deal like back in the day? Like this is like whatever. So it's about all of that, like intertwined in a love story.
How do you go about securing actors and actresses for?
It's tricky when you don't have money. So, so I have a fairly well-known actress who I reached out to her manager, and her manager was actually nice, which is very rare in Hollywood, and actually sent her the script, and she read the script, and she said, "Whenever you get the money, I'm down."
Really?
Yeah, and she's like,
nice. That's very nice.
I don't want to say her name, but she's on a popular television show that's on Stars.
Mm-hmm.
Is it BMF? What is it? It's initials.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about? BMF? Is that right? Yeah, she's on there.
Okay.
So I'll let people guess which actress it is.
Well, that is wonderful.
So I text her every now and then just to keep her
that line of
still working on the money, and then when I'm in LA, I try to link up with her, but she's usually, it's funny, when I'm in LA, she's in it because they shoot the show in Atlanta. So she's in Atlanta when I'm in LA, and so, or when I'm in Atlanta, she's back home in LA. So but she's, and there's a couple of other actors that are well known that one of them read the script and she's interested in it, but it's always about the money. It's always about the money. And I want to do it right. I mean, I don't want to do like a $500 film and have it look like it was done for $500.
Yeah.
So.
Well, this is your life's work. This is your reputation, so it needs to be stellar, right?
Yeah.
So, tell me about, do you have interest in teaching? I'm just wondering about the next generation. At one point, we were the generation, right? And now we're there are others coming up behind us who may be interested in the arts and different career paths. So you thought about teaching or working with youth on filmmaking and photography? I
taught a workshop last year over at PBS, and for a 45-minute course. And I was nervous. I was sweating because I was but these were adults. So they weren't little kids or anything.
And this was your first time doing this?
It was my first time ever teaching anybody anything. And it went okay. I thought, and people came up to me and said they learned a lot. I don't know. I would do it. I'm not super confident about teaching because I don't have any degrees. I didn't finish college in Atlanta. And so I always wonder about, am I going to be exposed? But I do everything, whether it's teaching or whatever, from my own personal experience. And that's what I did when I taught the workshop. Just talked about my own personal experiences, how I got into production, and I told them about the music videos I did in Atlanta and how I got into that and so forth. And that's all I can do. I think filmmaking, I think art in general, whether it's cinema or whatever, I don't really think you can really learn it from a book. I think it's you got to get out there and do it. And
you got to have the experience, right? And
develop your own style. Obviously there's things you can learn in a book. I tell people all the time, I went to this Bob Gale, who is he's from the St. Louis area. He's the guy that co-wrote Back to the Future with Robert Zemeckis,
Oh,
and he
really?
did a talk here several
Okay.
years ago. The Kansas City Film Commission brought him in, and I went to that.
Mhm.
And a young kid said, "Should I go to film school or should I not go to film school?" And so Bob, he gave a great answer. He said, because he went to USC, which is the film school. Yeah, that is the film school. Like,
Yeah.
and so he said, no one's ever asked me to see my degree from USC. You know, it's never, no one's ever no one cares. No one's ever asked me.
Interesting.
He was like, but if I hadn't went to USC, I would not have met Robert Zemeckis and Steven Spielberg and George Lucas.
Okay.
So obviously going to USC has benefited me
Yes.
tremendously. So
Exactly.
he was like, so it's hard to say. And like with me, like I didn't get my degree from Clark, but I wouldn't have gotten a chance to work on TLC and Outkast videos and Goody Mob videos if I had stayed here and not went to school in Atlanta. You know, so
Right.
so I always say,
Yep.
if you have the opportunity to go to film school and you can
Uh-huh.
afford it and you have the resources, then go. And then
Okay.
if you don't, sort of create your own film school, but do it right. Like, you know, like learn who like the masters were before you, and you know, really study the medium.
Sure.
Yeah.
What kind of networks are you involved in? Are you involved in the film commission here, or?
Yeah, so I'm on the Film and Mo board, which is the board that just we were responsible for getting the film incentive back in Missouri. So that, are you familiar with the film incentive?
I'm not. No.
Okay, so the film incentive, it exists throughout the country. Like a lot of stuff shot in Atlanta and Canada now, and it's because they have a film incentive of I think it's like 30%. So it's cheaper to shoot. That's why they shoot so much stuff in Atlanta. It's because it's cheaper to shoot because they have a film incentive.
Okay.
Yeah, like it's
Okay.
so many percentage. And so Missouri, we had one and then we lost it because, you know, the politicians here, they're not forward thinking, most of them. So we got it back. So now, because what'll happen is different films will look for a cool place to shoot a movie. But they look at like, okay, they have a film incentive. If they don't, then they won't shoot in that particular city because, you know, obviously it's cheaper. So, and what people don't realize is if they shoot a film in your city, it helps the economy, because when they're here filming, they got to eat, they got to have a place to live, they got to
Right.
drive
Mhm.
on their days off, they want to have entertainment. And I always use the example of, like, let's say for instance, a film like a rom-com comes out and it's really, really popular, and they film it here. And in the rom-com, they have them like walking along Berkeley Riverfront Park, or they're walking through the plaza. And if the film's popular, people are going to go, I want to go where they shot that film, you know? And so it helps tourism. It does all of those things. And so what Kansas City needs now versus like Atlanta is we don't have the infrastructure. So like, I think all of the Marvel films are shot in Atlanta now, but they have the sound stages to actually accommodate. You know, you
Okay.
can't shoot Thor here at the Gym Theater.
Sure.
I mean, no offense.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It's just
he's my
not big
favorite.
enough, you know,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
for those sets. You know,
Yes.
I know Tech 9 has a sound stage out in Lee Summit, but I don't know how big it is.
Oh, yes. I've seen photos.
So yeah,
Mhm.
so now
Yep.
like the infrastructure where
Mhm.
like a major film can actually come, because you need large sound stages because they still shoot a lot of interior stuff. So that's where we're at now, I think.
Okay.
And you know, we're not Atlanta, we're not LA, but you know, I think but there is a film community here, and there's a handful of us working to sort of make this.
Awesome. Yeah. Tech 9 actually shot a music video over in the Blue Room
Oh, really?
a year or
When
two.
was that?
A year or
Okay,
two
yeah.
ago.
Yeah, he shoots. That's why
Yeah.
I love
So
about
that
him. He
was pretty
shoots all
special
over
for
the
us.
city. Yeah, I went to high school. I still call him Aaron. I went to high school with Aaron, and so I don't know if you've ever seen this facility in Lee Summit.
I haven't. I've only seen photos.
It's like, I mean, it
Yeah.
ain't Tyler Perry Studios,
Uh-huh.
but I mean, it's pretty impressive. I think he has like 8 or 9 buildings, sound stage, recording studio. He has facility
pretty
where all their
fabulous.
manufacturing is.
Mm-hmm.
It's right off of Douglas. I'll take you out there.
Okay. Sounds good. You mentioned when you were in Atlanta, you worked with several different musical groups. TLC was one. Can you tell us a little bit about TLC or your
I
time?
love telling my TLC story.
Yes.
So I was a student at Clark, and I was working as production assistant on music videos. The producer's name was Kim Moye. She was kind of like the top music video producer in Atlanta at the time. And so I was actually coming home to Kansas City to see my mother, and I got a call from her, and she said, she used to call me D. She said, D, what are you doing like Wednesday and Thursday? And I said, I'm actually going home to see my mom. She was like, oh, man, I need one more PA for this TLC video. I was like, I'll do it. I said, I'll change because I'm a huge TLC fan, especially back then. I said, I'll do it. So I changed. I was flying standby anyway. So I told my mother, I called my mother and said, I'm doing this TLC video, so I'll be in a couple of days later. And my mother, God rest her soul, she said this. She was just messed. She was like, let me get this straight. You love TLC more than you love your mama, but she was just messing with me. And I was like, no, that's not it at all, But of course she was at the beauty shop bragging, acting like I was dating him or whatever. But anyway, so.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that was a great story for her.
So then it was for the song Creep. Now keep in mind, this was, if you remember when Left Eye burnt down Andre Rice's house. So this was like maybe 2 weeks after that. So there was a rush because I had a friend that worked at LaFace Records, and she gave me the inside scoop. So when that happened, this was right before their album Crazy Sexy Cool was getting ready to come out. And so there was a rush because they didn't know if Left Eye was going to have to do time. Because remember, they were prosecuting her for arson. And they was like, we need to shoot these videos. So if she does have to do time, we can at least have the videos to help promote the album. So there was like this rush job to do. I think they did Red Light Special and Creep all in a matter of like a couple of weeks. And so anyway, so I go to the set, and it was a 2-day shoot, and it was great. And I had actually met, had I met them at that point? Well, anyway, so it was cool. A lot of people were on the set. I remember Johnny Gill was on the set. Jermaine Dupri was on the set. Usher was on the set. He was a kid then. Of course, L.A. Reid. And I remember at one point we shot this dance sequence in this alley in downtown Atlanta. And I was standing there. And
now, are you photographing or are you videotaping?
No, so I was production assistant. So the production assistant is a fancy word for gopher. So basically, you do whatever they tell you to do. If they want you to run to the store and do something, but what I would do is I would position myself with the technical people, and then they would need me the rest of the shoot, like the cameraman or the sound guy. That's what I would do. And
you could hang around longer too,
and that way
right?
they didn't send me to like get food and stuff. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm helping the sound guy. He needs me. Like, there's a method to it. There's a method to it. So I turned to my left, and Tupac was standing next to me. And he had a baseball cap on, cigar in his. And I just kind of went, okay. I didn't think anything of it at the time, but then like years later, I'm like, I don't have any kids, so I can't tell my grandkids, but I can tell my great nieces and nephews that I was in the, same areas as Tupac. So anyway, we shot the video. Everything went well. And there's a part in the video where there's a close-up of T-Boz. She grabs her car keys and then she goes out the door. So when they shot that, I just happened to be standing there and nobody had any keys. So I said, you could use my keys. So I come back to Kansas City. I'm telling everybody, when you see the video, look for my keys, So anyway, they didn't like the video.
Oh,
they were like, it's too dark. It's not this, it's not that. So they didn't use the video. So of course people were like, man, why you lying? You didn't work on no TLC video. But I made sure I got a copy of the video, and I still have a copy of the video.
Smart.
And whenever I have people over, I always pull it out and show it to them. So if you want to see the unreleased TLC Creep video for $59.99, no, I'm kidding. No, but no. So that's my Tupac TLC story. And it's funny, even though she had burnt down Rising's house, he was on the set.
Oh my.
And she would go sit in the car with him when they would take breaks and stuff. Okay. That's that young love, that young drama, that's that dysfunctional love.
You can't make that stuff up. Wow.
Right. But it was cool to be in the middle of all of that. So
exciting.
I remember we drove out to the house because we wanted to see the burnt house and stuff.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah.
So I was curatorial director for the National Museum of African American Music that opened in 2021 in Nashville. And we had it was actually a Lisa Lopez outfit on display in the One Nation Under a Groove Gallery, which is the Rhythm and Blues Gallery. And her sister Rainbow came through. And she felt like that outfit did not represent her sister as well as one that the family had. And so they brought us the outfit that they wanted
That was
us
great.
to
Like, don't just complain. Bring us an outfit that we can use.
Right,
Right,
just loan us, and it's still there. Maybe a 2-3 year loan, and I think it's one of the last outfits she wore with TLC.
Wow.
So, but that was pretty cool to meet her sister.
I met.
Family.
So I worked at Greenbrier Mall in Atlanta, and it's still there. I heard it's gone down a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like 30 years ago when I worked there, but like it is. Like our regular customers were like TLC, Goody Mob, Outkast, Fight from Tribe Called Quest, Chuck D, Houdini, Too Short, Keith Sweat. Remember Cut Close, the girl group Cut Close? They used to shop in there.
Oh my gosh, we're showing.
And these were like regular customers. Like I know. We people are like Cut Close. What is that?
Right.
We are definitely showing our age, right? So that experience of just working at the record store was like,
you were on the forefront.
It was because that was
scene,
because Greenbrier Mall is kind of right near like East Point, College Park area, and so that's where a lot of them live. The guys from Criss Cross would come in. It was a great experience.
Let me ask you this: what do you feel has been your big break?
So I feel like, as we talked about before, I feel like I'm still looking for that big break. But I guess if I have to, I guess the most gratifying thing that's happened to me as an artist is last year, the documentary that you're in, Kansas City Dreamin', screened in the Pan-African Film Festival, which, for those that don't know, that's it's in Los Angeles every year in February. It was created by Danny Glover. And
that's huge.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest, it's one of the top Black film festivals they do in the country every year. And so what's great about Pan-African is they have all the directors that are chosen. They have a luncheon at the Directors Guild of America in Hollywood with just the directors. Okay. And Danny Glover attends. And so you get to sit and have lunch and talk to Danny Glover. And then they screen the film twice at the festival. Okay. And it's at like the Baldwin Hills Mall at their theater there, and in that area. And the first showing, we had a decent crowd, but then the second showing was almost sold out. My regret is that the second showing, there was a line that was going down through the theater that I didn't take a picture of that with my phone. I regret not doing that. And just the LA audience just loved the film, and they were singing along. And afterwards, I had to be escorted out of the theater because they had to get the theater ready for the next screening. And people were coming up. They was like, Mr. French will be in the lobby. I was like, I'm Mr. French now? What is happening?
Absolutely.
So to me, I guess that would be something that I've never experienced, that kind of, it's one thing to screen it in Kansas City because we're vested, because we're from this area. We know about Charlie Parker and Tech and Janelle, but they have, those are LA folks. They have no connection to Kansas City, but they like the film. Like, there was actually a bigger response than when I've screened it here locally. So I guess if I had to say a big break moment, that would be it.
Yeah.
Now it's just a matter of getting it distributed. Yeah.
Yep. Just keep up the good work and keep pushing hard. How can people follow you? What are some of your social media platforms?
Yeah, so you can just, easiest way is to Google my full name, Diallo Javonne French, Diallo Javonne, and then French, like I always say French, like French kiss. And that'll pull up my website, which is just JavonneFilms.com. My personal Instagram is, I believe, at Diallo_French. And then the film's IG is at Javonne Filmworks, I believe. I'm getting old. But the easiest way is just to Google my full name, and it'll lead you to the website. And my IMDb page, the Wikipedia page, all of that good stuff. So.
Okay. All right. Well, best of luck to you. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me on, Dr. Dina Bennett.
You bet. So we'll see you next time.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you for tuning in to an episode of the Big Break Podcast. Now be sure to like, review, and subscribe to the Big Break on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. We also want to thank Missouri Humanities. Their financial support helps us in connecting Missourians to the people, places, and ideas that shape society. So stay connected for more incredible conversations from the American Jazz Museum, because this is where jazz lives.